You are listening to an MLGA Network podcast.
Hey, Maddie.
Hey.
Did you know the human population of this planet is the disease that's causing all the other problems?
I'm not sure of that.
We must wait till the entire apple is rotten before we do something?
As I eat this perfectly good apple. Ironically enough.
That's like saying just because turds are only smeared over part of a toilet, it's not in need of cleaning. The human species is the fastest acting, most destructive cancer in the universe, pound for pound.
I'm eating an apple, a perfectly good apple, and here you are talking about turds? Jessie, I thought you went to church this morning. What's going on here?
I'm just reading this crazy psychopath's comments on our latest post on Instagram, and apparently he thinks that we're attacking Greta Thunberg too much, and he didn't like what we said.
Oh dear Lord. All right, let's get into it. Cue intro song.
Welcome to Voluntary Vixens, where Jessie and Maddie give a female voice to news and pop culture with a libertarian twist. Join us to stay informed and challenged while keeping it sane, peaceful, and most importantly, voluntary.
Let me just describe our last post. I posted a meme, and it has several pictures of children in third world countries, just their daily lives. Some of them are picking up trash off the side of the road. Some are, they look like child soldiers, victims of war, things like that. And then at the very end, it's a picture of Greta Thunberg, and it says Swedish white privilege. So I posted that because I thought that was a pretty, poignant statement of like how privileged we are that we get to worry about climate change, whereas people, especially children in other countries, they just need to worry about like
surviving,
living their life. Yeah. Getting enough food to eat, picking rags so that they can sell them so their family can eat.
Not being shot by the other children in their community because some crazy warlord has decided to rope them all into their own power-hungry conflict.
Yes, and this guy, and his name is, I'm going to put him on blast, sorry, because he's crazy. His handle name is Rockefeller Rothschild. If that doesn't
red flag you, you know what?
Yeah.
I almost question if he's a real person or not, because it's reminding me of, if anybody watches Homeland out there, in the season, not this past season, but maybe the season before, when the new female president was elected, and they actually had to hold the show off because they had to do a rewrite because they were expecting Hillary Clinton to win, but she didn't. Anyway, so if you watch that season of Homeland, and I feel like I've talked about this. No, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but Jessie, are you familiar with the show at all?
Oh, yeah, I love that show.
So you know what I'm talking about. And so remember that one season they had the character that was supposed to be like Alex Jones, and then he was really like a government agent or working with the government, and they had all those fake bots, and it was like a bot farm. And this person is reacting almost like a bot.
It's actually not even... Yeah. Well, this guy, he sounds like a psychopath. And he's talking about overpopulation is the reason why we have climate change, why we have so much pollution. And
every other problem. Every other problem that we face in this world, and that these children in particular, this post that you posted, Jessie, is what set him off. Here we are, obviously sympathizing with these children that are living terrible lives, and contrasting it with this scripted white girl's UN speech that adults definitely wrote for her, that she did not write herself, and they are using her to spread their agenda and make make everybody else fear the coming quote-unquote apocalypse, the same apocalypse that they've been wrong for decades about. But never mind that, but so here, overpopulation, it's just how can you, I don't even know how we got there, but apparently overpopulation is a fact, and then it's indisputable, and there's all this logic and basic science and math, like, what? that back this guy's argument up. I mean, we wouldn't normally be dedicating an episode to trashing trolls on our Instagram feed, but this one in particular, another interview with another podcast host fell through, but, we'll be back on with him shortly in a few days. It's funny that I'm technologically challenged, but I was able to figure this out. But anyway, so, here we are. Jesse and I...
Well, to be fair, Jesse and I think his modem was broken or something.
And you can't save bad internet. But, so Jesse and I spent our morning in church and then on Instagram also. Sorry, Jesus. Still love you, but this is how I'm spreading your love, by trying to bat down this guy's nihilistic ideas that overpopulation is what is the sole cause of every single problem on this planet.
Yeah, and I think my issue with people who think that all our problems are caused by overpopulation, I mean, just if we look back a couple months, no, actually, maybe just a month, we talk about the El Paso shooter, and in his manifesto, he talks about overpopulation being a big problem, and that's why he needed to go out and shoot people. People who have this mentality, they don't value human beings. They don't seem to. It seems like a lot of them are hypocrites too, because I've heard. I was listening to another podcast before church, and they was talking about before Greta Thunberg, there was another young girl who was like half Japanese, and her father was from Canada.
Is he has the girl
5 kids.
That somebody in our group chat shared. I watched that video.
Yeah, I think so.
That sounds like that girl.
She went to Brazil and did a speech. Her. Yeah. It was very similar to Greta Thunberg's speech, actually. How dare you? Aren't you thinking about the children? Why are you... why do you have all this money and all these other people in third world countries don't have all this money? What are you doing about it? A lot of shame coming from, and she was 13 years old when she did this speech. But her father, clearly her father is one that coached her, because he was an environmental scientist, and he was a professor at one of the universities in Chicago, in Canada, is what I'm going to call it.
Classic.
And she couldn't have come up with these ideas on her own. She's talking about overpopulation. Well, he's been teaching that in his university classes, and he's got 5 kids of his own. So I feel like a lot of these people who talk about overpopulation are hypocrites, first off. Second off, like you were just saying, they're nihilists. They don't see any value in human beings. They just think that we just sit here and we just eat and poop and just destroy the planet just by merely existing. And that's not true. Human beings contribute to the world in many ways, very positive ways. There's a lot of things that human beings have done that have actually improved our pollution problem. I mean, if you think back into like the 16th century or 17th century, even 18th century London, I mean, the Thames River was set on fire like how many times? You know,
a lot.
So now you can't do that because we've learned how to take care of the environment better. Some things have changed over environmental science over, centuries. So I just think that when you sit there and blame it on people, then you're dehumanizing human beings. You're not seeing the value in them. And then this guy in particular, I mean, if you just look at his profile on Instagram, it's scary, the things that he says. And one of his hashtags is VHET. And I'll let Maddie just talk about what she looked that up, so she'll tell us. So yeah, I know. Well, okay. So found.
To this guy's credit, he seems to not be that much of a hypocrite, because he doesn't have, quote, like he's explained to us via comments, that he does not have any biological children of his own. Yet he is married, and his wife has her own children, and he loves them. And I'm like, okay, well, some part of you hates humans. So I'm concerned for your wife and her children. That I'll just leave that there. But so he keeps, and this is the second time he's posted something about overpopulation on one of our recent posts. And again, it's just like he's linking every problem in the world to overpopulation. He seems to be anti-government, which, okay, I can sort of understand that. And if we probably have things in common to discuss, but to make everything go back to this overpopulation idea. But so he keeps posting this other hashtag, and Jessie and I before this were just like, what the heck does that even mean? We had never seen it before, but so VHEMT is what he keeps hashtagging, and so I click on it to follow it, right? So it brings me to a collection of people that have used this hashtag before, and so VHEMT stands for the Voluntary Human Extinction Movement. Silence for effect.
That's disturbing.
So the Voluntary Human Extinction Movement is an activist movement that is actively come on guys, actively working to phase out the human species by asking us very politely to stop breeding. Armed with the slogan, "May we live long and die out," VHEMT's eventual goal is to return the Earth to its natural, healthy state. I know this isn't a video podcast, so you can't see my gaping open mouth, because I didn't read this before, but now that I've read it, I'm even more aghast at how harmful this guy's kind of mindset is. And I, as the woman who is apparently married to this guy, like, you should pack up and leave. That is a scary person to be with. And if he's supposed to be crazy. Even not the biological father of your children, but he's supposed to be acting as the father of your children, and he deep-seatedly hates humans and wants everybody to stop producing, do you not think he doesn't resent you at some level for having those children? And then your children having other children. Continuing the species. Oh no. Violating his first rule. I will also say that, okay, at least the word voluntary is part of this, but it's also, that's just, okay, so that maybe is part of the battle where, you know, as voluntarists, we expect and hope that if you have such a good idea, that you are able to spread that idea through facts, logic, reason, appealing on emotional level where you need to, trying to get other people to join your cause voluntarily and through the peaceful conversation that you'll have with them to explain why your idea is better than maybe the one that they have. But this is creepy. It's on I'm seeing this this definition on an account called Creepy Enemies. This is nuts. I know, right? I'm seriously creeped out. What the hell?
Oh yeah, I'm seeing it now too.
You see that?
Yeah. So guys, I don't know. I think that we need to just let's just be realistic here. Okay, so you think that overpopulation is a real thing. Now that was, I don't remember who the scientist was that proposed that idea, but he got into he agreed to debate another scientist and he lost. And whoever listens to this wants to email us and let us know what they think, who the scientist is, I'd greatly appreciate it. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But let's just think about this for a second, okay? If overpopulation really is a problem in this world, not just this country, then why do we have places like Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico,
even most of Texas?
Oh yeah, I mean, how come we can drive for miles and miles and miles and not see a gas station or a city or a human being for miles? How is that even possible? I mean, that is in itself is like you're ignoring what you see. And then on top of that, let's just talk about China for a second. Now, China, they just changed their one-child policy a few years ago to where now they can have 2 children, because what they were running into is people were choosing to have boys instead of girls.
So they would abort the girls, or if they went to full term, I imagine they killed those babies. So infanticide or mass abortion and gender-specific abortion. How do you like that, mention that
there's already like young girl, like most of the orphanages are filled with girls.
So sad. So, no wonder. Yeah.
And what they've run into, I was watching a documentary about this. It's on Netflix. I can't remember the name of it, but there was a documentary about how there were villages, just villages of men, and like maybe like one or two old women. I mean, they just didn't have any. They didn't have enough women to be with the men, and in China, having a family is important. But they have all these men who can't find a wife. So now we're getting to where like young girls are being kidnapped from their homes and stuff like that. It's terrible. That's why also North Korea, what they'll do is a lot of these men will take a Korean woman who like crosses the border and like hold her up and procreate with her so they can at least have a son.
And and procreate sounds like a nice word for rape and forced impregnation. Is that a word?
Yeah. They won't marry these women in many cases because they're not Chinese, but they will have children with them, and they'll just somehow pass it off like this is, their son, their child. It's pretty disturbing. And so that in itself just tells me right there that China already sees that they're going to be running into a population drop.
Because they're all going to, so I mean, there are dystopian movies that lay out a future like this, more or less. Like, what's that movie with, who is it? Is it, nope, not going to guess his name, but do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like this post-apocalyptic world, and people have stopped being able to get pregnant, and then there's that one woman who is it
Children of God or something like that? Yeah, it's I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, right.
See, if you hadn't told me,
I can see his face. I'm sorry, everybody.
I can't see it. I want to say Gerard Butler, but I don't think that's it.
Kind of looks like him, but not him.
Yeah, he's a British guy. Anyways. Yeah, and it's got Julianne Moore in it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, so, like, did that look like a perfect utopia? Like, did that look like the world returning to its natural and healthy self?
No. Because,
is that how China looks? Can I tell? Is that how China looks? Like, with their single child rule?
That's why they reinstated it.
Was China moving towards a healthier state by only allowing each family to have one child?
And so now, and then you think about, this is what's so funny, it's not really funny, but what's really messed up is that they're like taking the Uyghur population, which are in, the Uyghur population is in the western side of China, if I remember correctly. There's been drone footage that dropped this week in the news. Of course, it's not on the main news because we need to care more about impeaching Trump.
Dear God.
Over
Biden's problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, but what they're doing now, I mean, there was like drone footage of them lining up a bunch of like people from the Uyghur area.
Are those the Muslims?
Lining them up. Yep. And you see all these men with their heads shaved. They're all wearing like prison uniforms. They're all lined up and they're getting on buses to go somewhere.
Hey, Ilhan Omar, where is your outrage to that atrocity?
Yeah. And no, that's another thing. It's like what Muslim countries are stepping up to help the Uyghur population. I don't hear about it. If there are, I don't hear about it. We don't have any of our Muslims in our Congress and our government right now talking about China and how awful they're treating the Muslims there.
Well, I mean, so it would be American Muslims that would be the most capable of speaking up against this kind of outrage, because Muslims in other countries, honestly, our foreign policy and our government has probably destroyed a lot of any potential actual resistance and strong enough voices to display such outrage, and or the really powerful Muslim country in the world like Saudi Arabia. Are you kidding me? They're not showing you that. They're not standing up for Muslims. All they literally care about is themselves, their royal family, and trying to get more weapons from us to go kill the Yemenis.
Yes. So my point being is that China could easily keep the Muslim population in their country alive and stop killing them and harvesting their organs,
Disgusting.
Which is another rumor that's going around.
Wouldn't be surprised if it's true.
And yeah, I mean, they could care about that, but they're going to just kill them all off. But their solution is to, and they're going to just let you have one more child, and that's it. But Japan is going through their young people are not getting married. They're not having children. Germany, Denmark, most of Central Europe, or most of Europe in general, and I'm talking about like the native population of those countries, they're not having children.
No, they're natural.
They're opting out.
Their quote unquote natural, native populations are decreasing, and then that's when they say, oh, we need to increase our immigration. So who are they bringing in? They're bringing in populations of people from third world countries that have higher fertility rates or higher fecundity rates where they actually have the children, right?
Right.
And so, because they need a bigger tax base to pay for the people that are native to the state or the country itself.
I remember when I was in college, and I was, I took German in college, so I really cared a lot about like German language and culture and the country and their government. And I remember
how many Sig Heils did you do that semester?
Probably like a lot. We had to.
What?
Because I'm just kidding.
I know, okay. You're good.
But if I ever run for president, that will be cut out and used against me in propaganda, I'm sure. Yep. So I guess I won't be president of the United States anytime soon.
Run for non-president. I'd vote for non-president.
But what was I saying? Oh, sorry. So I was learning about, there's a huge Turkish population in Germany. That's like, their Mexico is Turkey because it's the border. Mm-hmm. It's right there. And Germans do not have a huge fondness for Turks either. But what ended up happening after World War I, this has been something that's been going on for a long time. World War I, but mostly after World War II, the German population most of the men were wiped out. So they needed workers in the factories and that kind of stuff. So they just brought in all this cheap labor from Turkey, and of course they, settled over here. So that's why you see a lot of Turkish Germans that live there. And it's just something that just keeps going on and on and on. So the problem is that with Germany, it's like after World War II, they didn't really keep up their population. They just had this same viewpoint as probably this guy. If you're not a Christian or you don't have a faith, let's just say, it's really easy to fall into that nihilistic viewpoint that, humanity is really just a pointless thing. There's no value to it. What is the point in anything? So why bother getting married? Why bother having children? When you think about like just the viewpoint of the Nazis in general, it was not a Christian idea. It was a very secular idea, the National Socialist movement. So it was very appealing to a lot of people because there was a lot of people who were disenfranchised with the world. And so, they weren't Christians. They had dropped out of their churches and their faith, and they attached themselves to national socialism. But then, of course, that failed them. So then now they're nihilists, and but also maybe they're communists now because Russia came in and they split up Germany. So, and socialism or communism is not a Christian it's not a faith-based belief system at all. Well, it is I would say it is a faith-based belief,
it's a replacement religion.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It replaces a god with the government.
Woof.
You know, or the movement was what they would call it.
Yeah, pick a movement, pick an ism, and these are the people that criticize religion and just act like, okay, religion. This guy's profile in particular says, religion is evil. Just okay, flat out statement, religion is evil. He acts, and these people act as if they are not beholden to a specific religion of their own. And so this is a very anti-human religion that they happen to subscribe to. And I don't know how that's not more destructive than Christianity. Modern day Christianity.
Well, actually, it's almost like a contradictory thought process. Because I actually... Yes. Yeah, I know some people that they say they don't believe in anything. They're atheists. They probably wouldn't call themselves nihilists, although they tend to say a lot of things that sound nihilist. But then they'll say something like, well, humanity is so great. I don't understand why nobody can understand how humanity is so wonderful. So it's almost like they don't quite check themselves. Like they don't listen to themselves.
Yeah.
I
don't know. It's definitely like listening to, every person has good and evil in them, and it's all about which wolf you feed, right? Do you feed the good wolf or do you feed the evil wolf? And so, sorry, unfortunately, that is an evil wolf you're feeding.
Yeah. I think that, the way that, I was raised, I'm a Christian, so the way I was kind of like brought up in the church to think about human beings is that we all have like that little nugget inside of us that it can get bigger or smaller depending on how much you want to feed it, like you're saying, like the wolf. And so there's always that potential for like the greatest evil possible or the greatest good. And so humans do have a value, and to just dismiss that in a person, you're missing out on so much. And I was thinking...
It's a stunted life as well.
I was thinking the other day... Exactly. No wonder people are on Prozac and Zoloft.
I'd be really interested in seeing
going to therapists all the time. He probably doesn't take anything.
I don't know. Maybe he does need some.
Why it's crazy.
I don't know. At least get some CBD in there, man.
But I'm just thinking, I was listening to Amazing Polly on YouTube.
Your girl,
guys, check her out. She's awesome. But she was talking about how there's these elites that are really trying to move people away from Christianity or away from faith and putting a lot of trust into technology and science for a lot of their answers, and they're really wanting to push progress is what they talk about a lot in a lot of these things. And she's like dating some of this stuff back to like the early 1900s, which I think is probably about the time when progressive movement really started. And
or like at least in a way that was big enough to even for us to even remember, record, or talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the Industrial Revolutions were starting around this time. It's like we're starting to see how technology can really change people's lives. And so now they're thinking, well, it can do this much. If we just keep pushing forward with technology, we can really improve more people's lives for good. But it's not even just that. It's that they want to... They don't want to really improve people's lives, in my opinion, or from what I've seen. They want to improve their own lives by, controlling everybody else.
Yep. Bingo.
And that reminds me of another conspiracy theory, which I'm not sure if it's really much of a conspiracy theory as much as it's just, it's fact.
What do you got? Lay it on
the
me.
Agenda 21. Think about it. If we control the population, then you make the population small enough to control. And so you got these people out there like Greta Thunberg that are being brainwashed into telling us we really need to be scared. In 10 years, we're all going to die because climate change is going to kill us. And the only way to stop it is by pleading with your governments to spend money on it.
Yeah.
What it is, I don't know. That's one thing I've yet to hear from these climate people is like, what exactly is your solution? If the only thing I hear people saying is like, well, you're just greedy capitalists. You just want to hold on to your money. You don't want to give your money up to help people.
I do want to hold on to the fruits of my labor.
But I don't know how giving money to our government is going to fix our pollution
those
issues.
People have only made things worse.
Especially since we know that China and India are like two of the biggest ones. I mean, you just go to North Africa and underdeveloped like parts of South Asia, you're just going to see the pollution is insane. So what about those countries? Why am I giving my government more money instead of trying to use my money to maybe help another country?
But Jessie, that's what foreign aid is for. That's what the UN is for. So we'll give them our money, our higher ups, and then they'll properly make sure that money is allocated to exactly the poorest people who need it. Right, Jessie? Isn't that how this works? Beep, beep, boop, boop.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I don't know what the answer is. If there really is a climate change issue that's abnormal, that's man-made, no one has proposed a real, solution to that. Now, I've seen some young people, find out ways to filter water and bring clean water to third world countries and things like that. Now, that I can get behind, but that person is not asking for government money.
No, they're figuring it out for themselves.
Yeah.
And they're making actual people's lives better, to a very measurable degree better.
I mean, I've been to India. I've been to the biggest city in India, Mumbai, and I've seen the biggest slums in the world. It's clearly a social, it's their cultural viewpoint. They don't see any value in their environment. I mean, I've watched people unwrap an ice cream and just throw the wrapper on the floor. I've seen people taking dumps on the side of the road, peeing on the side of the road where it's just piled with trash, where children who don't have shoes walk through. So, I mean, that to me is more of a cultural thing, and I'm not sure how I'm getting blamed for that, or anybody in my country is being blamed for that. I literally had to go to a plane, go fly to the other side of the world to see that. To me, the problem is over there. Greta needs to get her skinny Swedish ass and go over there and have a speech with them, with their governments about it.
But the thing
if she really wants to solve the problem.
Yeah, no, but the thing is that those people aren't listening because they're too busy trying to survive. They're not going to have time to listen to this little girl's scripted speech that somebody else handed to her to make all the higher income, predominantly white people in the Western societies react. The people that might be part and contributing to really awful degrees of pollution that we wouldn't want in our cities, and I'm San Francisco, we wouldn't want in LA, but those people, they don't have time to listen to these speeches. They don't have time for the virtue signaling. They're generally too busy trying to survive. And think about it, like San Franciscans, like the ones that are, everybody's got their head in the sand, and or they're the homeless people that are actually contributing to the mess, but you know what? They're trying to live day to day. They're not concerned about, who's got plastic shopping bags or not. They're not concerned about overfishing the seas. They're not in a place. They're not in a place to be able to care about things that actually might be harmfully occurring in the planet.
Well, I also think that, especially in India's case, because India has a high number of millionaires, I think that the people, when we talk about income inequality or inequality in general, India should be what they think about, because the people in India that are in the government, to be honest,
Would you look at
they
that?
They come from high caste families, and they don't experience what the average Indian experiences, and they don't care about them. I mean, I'm sorry. It's like Saudi Arabia. Do you really think that the princes of Saudi Arabia really care about what the average 8-year-old child goes through in their country? They don't.
Doesn't even require thought to answer that question.
Our government is becoming that way. You know?
It really is. I mean, it's that elitist mentality. Rules for thee, not for me.
I think that's the thing, is that I posted a speech on my personal account on Facebook. I'll try to post it onto our Voluntary Vixens website or Facebook, because I think that at the very end, she talks about how the banks are going to save the world. And I think that's very telling about how she really sees things, or who is coaching her sees things. Yeah, they're trying to get us to put our trust in the banks, and the banks that we had to bail out during the Obama administration. Yeah. So let's just think about that. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be all about conspiracies today, but I just felt like with somebody posting that we have a huge population problem, I mean, that in itself is a conspiracy theory that has been debunked so many times. I mean, just with your own eyes, you can see that. Just with the trends, if you just look at the trends within European nations, it shows a negative population growth. And when, especially in England and Denmark, I mean, they have huge problems with who's going to take care of the older population. I mean, there's a lot of these older folks don't have kids, and so they don't have a family person to take care of them as they're getting old and can't take care of themselves. They're putting a huge burden on their taxpayers because they have to stay in nursing homes where they have to be taken care of by the state. And do you really think the state's taking care of them the way that a loved one would take care of them?
Nope.
A loved one? I can tell you right now, I've gone into nursing homes for a lot of my hospice patients. And even the best ones, I don't really want my mom or my dad to have to live through that, you know? It's depressing.
It is.
So nothing replaces like your family, or your friends, and when you can't be in a place where you can see your loved ones or your friends whenever you want to, that's just, you're in a prison. So that's a thing to think about, you know, especially for you young ones out there. That sickness is kind of infiltrated its way into the United States for sure.
Definitely.
I hear so many people, and I'm going to go on record and I'm going to say, if you don't want children and you don't even like kids, okay, don't. For the love of God, don't have kids. Okay? I'm not trying to tell people what to do. But if you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to have kids because overpopulation is a big problem and we have climate change coming up, I don't want my kids to have to live through this, you know, apocalypse is coming to us in 10 years. That kind of thing, like, maybe you should really think about it, because you're choosing not to have children based on a complete lie.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that you've bought it. I'm sorry that your life will be somewhat less fulfilled, I think. Again, that's maybe my opinion, but I don't think my opinion is baseless. I'm sorry you're going to live a less fulfilling life. Because if it doesn't matter and you don't have things to look forward to in your life, like the lives of others that you're going to bring into this world and love and cherish and pass, it's not... I hate people who think that having children is narcissistic. Okay, sure, there are narcissists that are having children just because they want to see a little copy of themselves, but there is still something that even the worst people, or, you know, that might have certain personality traits that are not my favorite, and they're not my favorite people. But you know what? There is something that every person is, unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath. But when those people have children, there is something that changes in them forever. And I'm saying this as like a person who doesn't have kids, but it's something that you can see. It's something that I know is there. And, you know, I'm a child of somebody's. I've changed other people's lives by living. Mm-hmm. To just dismiss the value of human life by saying that all human life and any furthering of it is actually like a problem, you have problems with yourself, and I'm sorry. Fix that. Fix that on your own time. Which I'm glad this voluntary movement of like human extinction or whatever that acronym is of theirs. I'm glad they're doing it voluntarily, but I mean, so what's the next stage of that?
Well, I'm just going to say, you know, you probably feel that way because, you know, even though you don't have children, your parents loved you and they valued you and your sister
and brother.
And brother.
Happy anniversary, brother and sister-in-law.
And so there you go. You see the love that a parent has for you and your siblings, and when you grow up with being loved and cared for, you want to do that for your children. So I feel like most of the people that I've talked to and have had interactions with that were pro-abortion, hated, people and didn't want to populate the world anymore, that kind of thing. They didn't necessarily have like a parent. They either had one parent that was really abusive, or either physically or emotionally, or they grew up without a father figure or a mother figure in their life, and so they never really were valued. They didn't get that feeling from a parent. Not that you can't ever get past that and be a good parent. I'm just saying that's what I've seen.
And you're facing a number of other challenges without kind of those examples. So if you get past all that, good, great for you. Like, those are the voices I'd like to hear from. But
yeah, I mean, and I just think that when I see, what I'm thinking right now is, if you're a parent and you have kids now, just, love your kids. Make sure they know that you love them. The way that you treat your children, you just have no idea how much you impact their lives. Even just your absence can be something very harmful to a child. So, you have to always try to figure out a way to get across to your kids how much you love them. Not that you have to be perfect, because there's no such thing as a perfect parent.
None of us are.
But, I mean, I remember listening to a documentary about Charles Manson, and, his mom was an abusive prostitute, drug addict, and the guy who, I guess it was who did the psychological profile on Charles Manson, he just said, just parents, love your kids. You can prevent a lot of these things by just loving your kids. Give
them up for adoption. Give them up to a family member that will love them instead, because your shortcomings are not something that child deserves.
And just giving somebody life, you're putting out there an opportunity for somebody to do something really positive for the world. I think that we worry so much about, like, especially people who are pro-abortion worry so much about, well, they're going to grow up in the foster home or foster system, and they're going to be abused. All these awful things are going to happen to them. So you got to think, and then you start to think like, well, so, okay, you're going to have a hard life, so I'm going to kill you now? That's the answer? Why not do something about the foster system? Do something about how we make adoption so difficult in this country. That's why people go to China to adopt children, or India, because it's easier to adopt out of the country than it is within the country. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, really.
And it's not even really that easy.
No, there's still so many hoops to jump through.
And the thing is, like, if you get pregnant and you're on crack and You might be schizophrenic. I mean, no one's going to stop you from giving birth to a child. But if you're a normal, healthy adult and you can't get pregnant but you want to adopt, your whole life is like checked out by the government, and your everything, all the money that you spend and how you spend it, all your medical bills, everything is going to be looked into, your entire background, before you can adopt a child. But you could be like the worst human being on the planet, and you're allowed, and you're allowed to give birth and keep your child like that. So that just tells you like how weird we are about adoption.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things that are messed up with our system, and they're very, I would say, anti-human, and it's just like that kind of sentiment permeates everything. And he says humans are the cancer. It's that bad idea is the cancer that affects us all and is affecting us all.
I would almost venture to say that really, when you think back on it, it all kind of started with the, like, Engels and Marx, when they started writing their philosophies. I think that a lot of these, I would even say Friedrich Nietzsche, when he's talking about God is dead and religion is the opiate of the masses, you know, or no, that was Marx, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been Marx.
But I do think that Nietzsche also made a reference to religion being sort of a crutch of some kind. But that being said, I mean, I think that that's where a lot of this started, and that was like, let's see, what was going on at that time? Because that was right before World War I, right? So I think that Europe was going through a lot of changes that time. Countries were becoming more unstable. People were unhappier because, and I think this is when the Industrial Revolution was hitting, and people were working in factories, and they were living in cities and living in really poor conditions. People started to become disenfranchised with religion, disenfranchised with progress, and then you have people writing all these philosophies that feed into that negativity, and it just seems like it really hasn't gone away.
It's always, I mean, you know, parasites always find a way to still live, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to. Parasites have to procreate, you know, so they don't kill their host, they just seriously weaken their host. But in order for them to propagate, they have to make sure that host stays alive.
You know what I just thought of too, and I was listening to Amazing Polly on her I think it was her last post or last video that she made. She talked about the globalists and how they want to unite all of Europe under, like, they were talking about uniting all of Europe like after World War II or during World War II, I want to say. And these were like the secret agencies, like it was OSS at the time, not CIA. And
it's funny, didn't Hitler want to unite all of Europe?
Yeah, he did. But Angela Merkel was so much better at it than he was. And I told that to my ex-husband, and he almost like cussed me out because he is like a germophile. I call it a germophile. But he loves German history and everything, and he just like Germans, he thinks that their culture is so great and all that stuff. Like, of course, like not National Socialism, he's like, well, that was just one bad mistake.
Oh.
But the more that I've studied all of this stuff, I started realizing like a lot of really bad ideas come out of Germany. I think Michael Malice says that too, because like a lot of really bad ideas came out of Germany, and they just keep persisting somehow. But she was talking about globalists in general. They just want a whole world nation, one world government. They want to unite all of us. Well, the best way to control that is if you drop the population down tremendously in order for that to happen. And you have to devalue human beings in order to do that. You have to make marriage sound stupid. So, you know, being married to a man is just letting the patriarchy win, right? That's why they promote homosexuality and transgenderism, because they can't naturally have children. So even though those are things that I think, in my opinion, I do think that they naturally occur anyways.
Absolutely.
They promote it so that it's like the cool new thing, because they know that kids are easily manipulated. And so that's why you see like an upswing of all these kids who are gender fluid and transgendered, or whatever they want to call themselves, whatever their pronouns may be. They really promote that idea because they want to find all the different facets they can to keep people from having children. And then, of course, we know abortion is... we know that the left has really just grabbed onto the abortion idea.
Yeah, and ask Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who in particular she wanted to prevent the births of. Mm-hmm. I'll let listeners go figure that one out.
I think that's another thing. They really are targeting, like they're trying to target minorities, like they want to protect the minorities so much, but then they also are like pushing agendas like abortion down these people's throats. And
we love you so much, we want to kill you.
That disturbs me so much when I hear that. I don't see how they don't see it, but yeah, that's my biggest thing. Like that I just realized, like in the past, like few days, really, and maybe this guy, I don't know, something's going on in the universe, because like I watched that podcast or that YouTube, and then listened to that podcast about Agenda 21, and then this guy starts talking to us. It's like everything's coming in sync today.
Yeah, right.
But the underlying thing is, overpopulation is a lie. It's a lie. We aren't overpopulated. If anything, we're going to be, in the next 20 years or so, we're going to see a humongous drop in the population unless things really change. Unless, especially like Japan, if the young people there stop working so much, start having families. If China gets rid of their policies on killing people that they just happen to disagree with. If they get rid of just get rid of any child number. Like, why do you need to have a number on it?
Yeah,
just let
how
people
about
have
the government
children.
Doesn't have anything to do with how many children you have?
Yeah, and maybe stop polluting the environment. India I didn't talk about this, but India has a huge problem with infanticide. A large part of their orphanages are young girls or little girls, or they just kill their baby. They kill their girl babies. I like that documentary. I wish I could remember what it was called, but it's on Netflix, and they interview this village woman in India, and she's talking about how she's showing this place in the woods where she just buried all of her children.
Oh my God.
And she was just talking about it so matter of fact. She was like, this was the right decision. She never had children. She never had any children because she never had a boy. All of her children were little girls. She had I want to say 12 kids, 12 babies, and she killed them all. So
on that somber note,
yeah.
I guess a couple broad sweeping ideas to maybe wrap us up and send us home, because my computer is going to die. So something that we've talked about on other episodes, and it kind of applies to other topics as well. When we talk about gun control or controlling speech, and in this case, controlling any attempt of the state or a mass movement to control population, it's about people control. And it's these people want to control you.
Just think for yourself.
They have nothing to do with your life. And
question everything that is said to you.
Hashtag look into it.
Always. Yeah, or look into
Hashtag
it, like
look into
tinfoil hat says.
Yeah. Love you, tinfoil hat. Let's see. Did I have another idea? Oh, and I was going to also say that it seems like we've seen examples of throughout human history, because people have, tried this whole population curing thing before, and it still occurs today in parts of the world. But I think the consequences of somebody, some entity, some government trying to control the population always ends up more harmful to the world, to other humans, to the environment. All of it, they're more harmful than what you're saying this whole overpopulation problem is.
Yeah.
The noble savage isn't noble.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and there's sometimes you just gotta let people be free to do what they want.
Really?
When you suppress people, it has awful negative impacts on the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, pick a topic, pick something that somebody's trying to control. The results are horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Horrifying. We've already seen that happen in the last century. So, I was going to say our stunning and brave is going to be Eric from Rebel with a Cause, because he tried to do an interview with us today and his modem died. So
yeah, if you don't know who that is, follow his podcast. Follow his accounts on Instagram, Facebook. Rebel with a Cause will be appearing on his podcast soon. He's got, actually, we were going to be number 100, so I don't know if that'll still be the case. But, 101, 102 would be cool too. But so the guy's been doing it for a while. He's clearly got a cause worth fighting for, worth sharing. And so he is our stunning and brave shout out. And can't wait till we actually get on with you, Eric.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to say that if you guys really want to, just follow us. The best place to really follow us is on Instagram. That's where we're most active. Voluntary Vixens Podcast on Instagram. We're also on Facebook at Voluntary Vixens. We're on Twitter, not as active on Twitter, to be honest, because I have a hard time just getting on there. But we're there at Vixens _voluntary. Or is it?
On Twitter, it's Vixens _voluntary.
Yeah. And then we also have a Patreon, which we need to do some more stuff on there. But for now, if you want to check us out there, it's uppercase V's Vixens _voluntary. And I think that's it.
All right, we'll see you all soon. In the meantime, keep it sane, keep it peaceful, keep it voluntary.
Bye-bye.
Later, y'all.